Congresswoman's stock portfolio. It shows Pelosi had a 65% return on her investments last year. That's a big comeback from the year before when her portfolio dropped nearly 20%. Her net worth is reportedly more than $100 million.
Her husband's got a big part in that, too.
Yes.
She should work at Fidelity. She can help us out.
Good return.
I mean, applications are open at Schwab right now. Okay, I want to take you right now to South Africa. Former Olympic runner and convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius is now a free man. He served more than 8 years in a South African prison for killing his girlfriend on Valentine's Day 2013, and what an international story that was. Greg Palcott's got the story from London, and Greg, hello to you.
Hello, Bill. Yeah, the so-called Blade Runner is out of jail, and he's still getting a lot of attention. The now 37-year-old South African double amputee Oscar Pistorius got that name for the prosthetic legs he used to power him to running fame in the Olympics and Paralympics, a role model for achievement for the disabled and all, until he was plunged into infamy nearly 11 years ago on Valentine's Day when he killed his striking 29-year-old girlfriend and model Riva Steenkamp, firing his pistol at point-blank range through a door while she was crouching in a bathroom. In the trial, he claimed he was mistaken and thought there was an intruder in his home. The prosecution said the shots were fired in jealous anger following a noisy argument. All of this attracted global media attention, including our teams. The world seemingly divided about whether Pistorius was innocent or guilty. In the end, he was convicted of murder. Riva Steenkamp's mother, June Steenkamp, said in part in a statement today, there can never be justice if your loved one is never coming back, and no amount of time served will bring Riva back. After his release from jail early today, it's reported Pistorius is now at his uncle's house in a well-to-do suburb of Pretoria, South Africa, where it's thought he will serve out his nearly 6-year-long parole. Bill, among the requirements of that parole, Oscar Pistorius performs community service and attends anger management classes.
What a story it was then, what it is today again. Thank you, Greg Palcott, with that from London today. We have covered that a lot.
I know, and so earlier today, Bill asked me, where were you when the story came out? And I said, I think I was at the White House, but I wasn't. It was 2013, and we were on the 5, and I remember we covered that extensively.
Yeah, I mean, it really stunned the world when you think how accomplished he is and how he was recognized throughout the entire country of South Africa as a good guy, and they were super proud of him.
Strange, he only served 11 years for the murder, I think. I don't know.
Could be.
Different sort of system of justice over there, indeed. All right, want to get you to this story. Lines as long as the eyes can see. The migrant surge in Democratic-run cities spurring a blue city backlash. President Biden is no stranger to Republicans criticizing his immigration policies. But now the border crossing crisis, it's so overwhelming that even Democratic mayors are piling on. And it's coming at the worst possible time, of course, during an election year. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino.
Morning, partner. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning at home. Just a fraction of what's coming across the border every day, and it's enough to make sanctuary cities sound the alarm, plead for more help, beg for help from the federal government and the White House. The chaos becoming impossible to ignore, even thousands of miles away from the border, as the crisis makes its way into big cities. Now the mayors from Democratic strongholds say the White House has left them to fend for themselves.
The federal government must take responsibility and lead on this humanitarian crisis.
All of our cities have reached a point where we are either close to capacity or nearly out of room.
It will crush city budgets around the country. We're looking at about $160 million of potential costs going into next year's budget. That's almost 10% of our entire city budget.
Denver's Democratic Mayor Mike Johnston, he is here just moments away. But first, Alexis McAdams live in New York City, where the mayor is taking his own action. What would that be, Alexis?
Hey, Dana. Well, Mayor Eric Adams is now suing these charter bus companies that are bringing hundreds of migrants by the week here to the Port Authority in Manhattan. He says, Dana, he is fed up and is blaming the governor of Texas, saying Greg Abbott is doing this as all of a big scheme. Watch.
We cannot bear the cost of reckless political ploys from the state of Texas alone. These companies have violated state law by not paying the cost of caring for these migrants. And that's why we are suing.
So let's take a look at this lawsuit, right, which was just filed in a New York state court this week. New York City is suing 17 charter bus companies for more than $700 million for busing migrants in from Texas. Mayor Adams blames them for these massive costs that the city has had to dish out continuously to feed, house, and even offer services to the migrants for the past 2 years, and it's not slowing down, right? So according to Mayor Adams, at least 33,000 migrants and counting have been bused into the Big Apple since April of 2022. It's all part of Operation Lone Star, which we've talked about here on Fox. It's an initiative by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the Texas Department of Public Safety aimed at curbing illegal immigration because they say they are inundated every single day with these migrant crossings. Governor Abbott has been firing back at Mayor Adams, releasing this statement in part, saying every migrant bussed in or flown to New York City did so voluntarily. So that lawsuit comes 1 week after Mayor Adams issued that executive order to curb migrant bus arrivals by limiting their hours. Since then, buses were then rerouted to New Jersey. But when they showed up there, hey, officials sent them right on some trains to New York City. This is what New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy had to say.
We're obviously monitoring this very closely. This is a national issue. We need Congress to take action, period.
And it's not just the mayor of New York City, it's also the governor of New York, Dana and Bill, who is backing this lawsuit 100%. The mayor and the governor have a press conference in just a short while. We'll be asking them about this ongoing migrant crisis.
Alexis, thank you so much. And joining us now is the Democratic mayor of Denver, Mike Johnson. It's really great to have you. And knowing you from I follow Denver news, okay? This is my hometown. I look into it. And you have a reputation as somebody who wants to solve a lot of problems. And I know you know a lot about government. And you're a practical person, so you're looking for some solutions. Right now, I just saw in the clip from last Sunday, you said that this crisis is costing you 10% of your city's budget, which was money you probably wanted to go somewhere else. So what can you, as a mayor, sort of new on the scene, I know you've got a year under your belt, but what could you do to try to force some sort of new policy that will get this situation under control?
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on with you. The pride of CSU Pueblo. We're delighted to get to celebrate you across the country. But we do think there is a practical, pragmatic way to solve this problem, and there are 3 key steps for us. One is we do think that we should have expedited processing of these asylum claims, so they should take 30 or 90 days and not 6 years. We think most importantly, when folks arrive in our city, we want them to have the ability to work. If they have work authorization when they arrive, they can get to work and support themselves immediately. Don't need federal or state support. And the third is we just want a coordinated entry system. We want the country to be able to work collaboratively to figure out where migrants should arrive and where there's capacity. In the same way we did with refugees from Ukraine or refugees from Afghanistan, we know how to do this. We want the country to work collaboratively to figure out how to manage that distribution process.
On work permits, if I could ask you about that, because I do think there's a lot of people in the country that would say, I'm for legal immigration. I know that we need more workers. But if you do the work permits without actually securing the border, won't that just incentivize more people to leave their home countries to try to make that dangerous trip across the border and come here illegally?
You know, I think that's why we're calling on Congress to take action on what they think the right border admission policy is. That's above my pay grade. But whether they decide to have 10,000 people enter a day or 5,000 enter a day, the key for us is when they arrive in our cities, they just need to be able to work. I think there's nothing more un-American than having someone arrive in your city and beg me every day for the chance to work, and us to say, no, we won't let you work. We instead want you to stay here and be supported by taxpayer dollars for not working. These are folks that are hardworking, they're industrious, they have skills, they want jobs. And I get calls from CEOs every day saying, conservative CEOs who are saying, I have open jobs, why can't I hire these folks? Let's put them to work. And I agree with that sentiment.
Well, Mayor, I understand the point you're trying to make there, but I also understand Dana's question. And you told the New York Times, you said, we're not going to sit by and watch moms and 6-month-olds in tents on the streets in 10-degree weather. I think America would agree with you on that. But why not start at the source? Well, why not push for a policy change at the border so you can deal with this long before it comes to your city?
Yeah, again, we're open to what the Congress decides they want the admissions policy to be. That's not our decision. I'll tell you, we've had more than 36,000 migrants who have arrived this year, and we have successfully integrated all of them into work or housing until just the last month. And that was because those folks came with work authorization under temporary protective status through about October. When that expired and folks could no longer work, that was the first time we started seeing people ending up in tents and encampments because they couldn't support themselves. If people have the ability to work, I think mayors would tell you we have more than enough capacity to put them to work. We just don't want people here with no capacity to work and expect cities to foot the bill.
I got you, but you're a purple state, and you got power, and you're a Democrat, and you can call this White House every day of the week if you like. Have you?
I have called the White House. I've talked to Secretary Mayorkas regularly. I've talked to the White House and to Jeff Zients and Tom Perez, and we're pushing for those changes. This is why we were glad that Secretary Mayorkas actually did that temporary protective status. That helped keep our cities going through the fall. I think folks responded by trying to impeach him for that. We think that was him actually supporting cities and trying to manage this successfully. But yes, we're talking to the White House. We've told them we need more federal aid. That's why there's dollars in that supplemental budget to do that, and dollars critically to add more capacity at the border to adjudicate these claims more quickly and provide more security. I think there are dollars to do that. We think there's a common sense path to do both.
Just want to bring this up. So Texas bus population to various states, according to Abbott's office, they've sent 95,000 or a little bit more than that out of their state. They have had 1.5 million just this fiscal year cross into Texas. Do you have some empathy for what Abbott is dealing with, given that that border is so wide open?
I do have empathy, and I don't think any one state should have to solve this problem alone. I don't think any one city should have to solve this problem alone. I've reached out to Governor Abbott and offered to work together. I would still like to do that. I think what we want is what would help him also, which is to say there should be a coordinated national plan for where these migrants arrive, and Texas shouldn't have to bear the entire brunt, nor should Denver or Chicago or New York. We got 100 cities out there, 50 states who all could welcome people, have vacant jobs. If we could help make them arrive with work authorization, federal support, and a coordinated plan, I'd be happy to work with Governor Abbott to make that work.
Thank you for your time. We're out of time now, but you got some power. You can do something with it.
Yeah.
Mayor, thank you for your time in Denver.
We are working hard on it. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Come anytime.
Thank you. The pride of Pueblo, CSU.
Yeah, well,
There's
CSU
another
Pueblo.
plug for that. Go.
CSU. Well, he seems like somebody who you could work with, okay? And he, as you said, he has a voice. He's got some power. He worked in the Obama administration. He knows higher ed. And you have some new mayors. You have Brandon Johnson. You have Mayor Eric Adams. You have the new woman, Sherelle Parker, out of Philadelphia. Yeah. All of these cities have a similar problem, and they could band together, and they need to. And that's why I asked a question about Abbott. Like, do you understand what Abbott is going through?
It's a good question about the empathy. I would point a lot of viewers to this New York Times piece today about how these Democrats across the country are putting pressure on the White House during an election year.
Yeah.
And what they write about, it's increased the likelihood that Mr. Biden and Democratic lawmakers could approve immigration concessions to Republicans that would have seemed improbable just a few years ago. And that's kind of where the argument's going right now, as to whether or not.
We could see more on that next week as the budget fight heats up. So we will keep you posted on all of that.
Okay, in the meantime, we got a 6th grade student, Dana, was killed and 5 others injured. Happened yesterday on our program here in the state of Iowa. A gunman opened fire at a high school northwest of Des Moines. Police have identified the shooter as a 17-year-old student at Perry High School. They say he was found dead with apparent self-inflicted wound. A gunshot. Authorities say he was armed with a shotgun and a handgun. They also disabled an improvised explosive device they found in the school. So hundreds came together last night to pray for the victims during a candlelight vigil. This was the first day of class after the holiday break. Now, 4 of the injured students and the 5th victim is believed to be the school's principal. That was Perry, Iowa, from yesterday.
Unity. America's middle class, and to unite the country, we become too divided.
President Biden's 2024 bid taking a sharp turn from that push for unity. The Biden campaign is targeting Donald Trump and MAGA extremism. During his first stump speech of the year, Biden is planning to warn voters that a vote for Trump could end democracy. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, which sounds beautiful, where the president will be campaigning today. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Dana. President Biden is returning here to the critical battleground state of Pennsylvania, a state he has visited more than any other state since becoming president. We're only 15 miles away from George Washington's winter encampment at Valley Forge. And recall President Biden going to Philadelphia ahead of the midterm elections when he was flanked by those Marine Corps sentries. Yesterday at the White House, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre explained why the president has come back here.
January 6th was an unprecedented, certainly attack on our core principles and our democracy and the rule of law in our Constitution. And so this is something that the president takes very seriously. It was disrespectful to our Constitution, an attack on our democracy. And the president, and let's not forget, these are values that we hold very close as a country, as a nation.
And with that in mind, the Biden campaign has released its first campaign ad of 2024.
There's something dangerous happening in America.
On January 6th in this so-called democracy movement because he can't run on his record.
I don't buy that they actually believe it, because if they really believed that the United States as we know it would cease to exist if Donald Trump was elected president, they wouldn't be sitting there with Joe Biden at 30% approval, at a 70% wrong track. 75% of Democrats don't want him to be the nominee.
Now, 4,000 of George Washington's soldiers camped at Valley Forge. It was not about victory, it was about survival. Washington said any man caught stealing food would be met by the lash punishment so severe that soldiers would bite down on a lead bullet to soften the pain, hence the term, bite the bullet, Dana.
Hey, you learn something every day from Lucas Tomlinson, right? All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Admiral.
Only when you take out something Iran cares about, one of its field generals, some of its financial assets, only when you hurt the regime itself will peace be restored. Sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate.
The U.S. taking out the man believed to be behind more than 100 attacks on our troops overseas. Is the Biden administration finally taking a tougher stance on Iranian aggression? We'll ask Sabrina Singh. She's the Pentagon deputy spokesperson next.
Also, there are some parts of the country that haven't seen snow in 700 days.
What?
Millions of Americans today are under a winter storm alert as the first nor'easter of the year barrels toward the East Coast, where the snow and the ice could be the heaviest. We'll have a look at that forecast.
And a chaotic scene inside a California bakery. A mob of over 100 looters using a car to break in, and then they snatched everything they could.
Are you suffering from bladder and bowel leaks?
Affected by rain and wind, but say a prayer.
Yep.
That Lily gets her wish.
We shall. Shout out to Lozier. Major escalations in the Middle East this week. Israel killing a senior Hamas commander in Beirut. The U.S. then taking out an Iranian-backed militia leader in Baghdad. All this while ISIS claims responsibility for a terror attack that killed nearly 100 people in Iran. Sabrina Singh, Deputy Pentagon spokesperson, with us now. And good morning to you. Lot to get to. It's an active world. We're trying to see whether or not we can keep the Middle East with a lid on it right now. From what I understand, the individual who was targeted and taken out in eastern Baghdad was traveling in a vehicle with another person, which tells me that we were tracking him. Is this administration willing to hit again?
Look, we always reserve the right to protect our forces, to protect our people that are stationed, whether it be in the Middle East or all around the world. What you saw yesterday is the U.S. military take action against a known terrorist leader that has led and orchestrated attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. And so I'm not going to forecast any future actions. But again, what you saw yesterday is very deliberate, precise action by the U.S. military against a known terrorist leader that has, again, time and time again, attacked U.S. forces based in Iraq and Syria, who are there on the mission to the enduring defeat of ISIS. And so you saw that yesterday, and again, I won't get ahead of any future action.
It's interesting that ISIS actually claimed responsibility for the attack in southern Iran yesterday. So are they making a comeback, or what's happening there? Is there more of an internal fight, or are they continuing to try to plot and plan to kill our people?
Well, I think yesterday's attack, or maybe the day before, excuse me, is a good reminder of the fact that ISIS still maintains a presence in the region. And that is exactly why U.S. forces are in Iraq and in Syria, partnering with militaries in those countries to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. We saw that peak just a few years ago. We do not want to see a resurgence of ISIS. And we're almost 10 years out from where ISIS was just only a few miles outside of Baghdad about 5 or 6 years ago. So again, it's really important that attack serves as a reminder of why U.S. forces are in the region doing what they're doing every day. And these attacks on U.S. forces distract from that mission. And that's why we've urged time and again that Iran call their militias that they fund, support, equip, operate, and train to back down on U.S. forces.
You know, on this, we heard from the Iraqi military. Have we heard from Iranian leadership?
Again, I would refer you to the Iranian government to speak to that.
We don't usually return our calls, Sabrina.
I understand that. We have urged very publicly in our conversations that we have urged the IRGC-backed militias, these groups that are funded by Iran, to cease their support for these groups, to tell these groups to back down. But that's why you're seeing a robust presence of not just U.S. forces in the region within the Eastern Mediterranean. You're seeing a coalition of international partners come together in the Red Sea to really combat those Houthi attacks that are backed by Iran in the Red Sea at commercial vessels that are just transiting. As you know, I know you've spoken about this on your program, 15% of the world's commercial trade goes through that very important waterway. And so you're seeing an international coalition of partners with the U.S. military really pushing back and protecting commercial shipping in the Red Sea as well.
Yeah, taking aggressive action there is critical for, remember the supply chain problems that we all had after COVID? This could happen again if that sea isn't protected. Also want to ask you about this because Xi Jinping of China has, with a New Year's resolution that he is going to reunite Taiwan with China. They also sent a spy balloon over Taiwan. Here's Mike Gallagher, the congressman from Wisconsin, on that.
President Biden is saying that because China is facing domestic economic problems, it's less likely they are going to invade Taiwan. There's no evidence to support that. It's just as possible that Xi Jinping will survey the world, see that the U.S. looks weak, that we're consumed with 2 regional wars, and that he may never get a better chance to achieve his lifelong ambition of taking Taiwan by force if necessary.
Is the Biden administration committed to preventing that from happening?
Look, we have outlined from the very beginning of this administration, and the secretary has said this time and again, that China remains our pacing challenge. We have not taken the eye off the ball when it comes to China. But I think just to push back on the congressman's comments, yes, there are 2 regional wars that are happening in Europe and in the Middle East. And that just shows the power of the United States military. We can do many things at once. We can have forces securing the NATO flank in Poland and elsewhere. And we can also support Israel in its fight to root out a terrorist organization in Gaza. And we can continue to keep our eye on the ball on China. Again, I can't comment more specifically on what China intends to do, but I can tell you that this department has certainly and is going to continue to keep an eye on what is happening in the Indo-Pacific.
I appreciate your time. A lot to go through on that. You know, our U.S. military men and women overseas, they deserve our support and our defense. Sabrina Singh, thank you for your time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Coming here for months. Going to every part of Iowa, shaking every hand.
I've put in a lot of time in Iowa because I think doing 99 counties is the way it's done here.
Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis clashing with just days to go before the Iowa caucuses. GOP candidates are flooding the Hawkeye state to make their final campaign push, but will it be enough to catch frontrunner Donald Trump? He's way ahead. Plus, is Hunter Biden trying to step into Tinseltown? The Hollywood hotshot back in a documentary all about the first son.